Morning, everybody. So I've been just asked to talk about the grave in Abington Cemetery. So this is a quick map of the cemetery, and the grave is located where the X is. Now, if you look at the road is on the right. The front part is the new part of the graveyard. It's over 30 years old now, but it's the new part. You can see it's all laid out nicely with paths. Where the grave is was the front wall of the old part of the graveyard, and the grave would have been as clergymen faced their congregations, so the head was at the wall facing in, if you know what I mean. Okay, and this is what it looks like. Because the plaque was set into the original wall, when the wall was taken away, when the graveyard was extended, the plaque went into the skip and was being taken away, and a local man, John D, happened upon the scene and came running. We can't do that. And it was taken down, and this little makeshift part of the wall was rebuilt with the tablet in it. And all it says is LeFanu, nothing else. But it's on the Historic Graves website. Now, the first person to be buried there was Jane Ferguson, and she was a sister to the Reverend LeFanu's wife. Now, I read somewhere the Reverend LeFanu was an austere clergyman, but actually he shows a very soft side in many of the things that he writes in the parish record. And so in this he says, in the churchyard of Abington, Mrs. Jane Ferguson, widow of the late John Ferguson, Esquire of Mulberry Hill, near Dublin, and daughter of the late excellent Dr. Dobbin, formerly TTCD, rector of St. Mary's, Dublin, and vicar of Finglas, my dear and much loved sister-in-law, who was to me indeed as a sister. And that was in 1836. Now, just as an aside, I found the marriage of John Ferguson and Jane Dobbin, so they married in Dublin in 1811 in St. Mary's, which was her father's parish. The next unfortunate person was Richard Bettisworth Fleming, and he was the son of Mrs. LeFanu's sister Elizabeth. And he was a young man. He seemed to be a regular visitor. I'll come on to that in a second. So again, the Reverend LeFanu gives a rather touching description of his nephew. And for us, he explicitly says that he's beside his aunt. And he lays out that his mother is a widow and that his brothers and sisters are dependent on him, and he leaves behind a young wife and a daughter as well, who was 1 year old, and that he died from a heart condition. So Reverend LeFanu was a genealogist champion. He wrote down everything he wanted to know. I also found their marriage, it was kind of indecipherable for the screen, so I just wrote it out there. They married in St. George's in Dublin in 1836, so they had just been married 3 years when he died. This is the same nephew. If you want to read about it, you can go to the Freeman's Journal of 1836, but he was the nephew who was attacked in Kishikirk, which is at the far extreme end of the Boer end of the parish. During the Tide Awards, they were delivering the letters to people, the demand for tithes, basically. William LeFanu and the cousin Richard Fleming were attacked, but I'm not going to go into that now because it's off topic. But then we have poor Catherine, who I always think it's appropriate that we just have a silhouette. And this was in 1841, and he very touchingly says, my beloved child was born on the 7th of June 1813, and God took her to himself on the 25th of March 1841. The funeral service was read by my request by the Reverend Michael Lloyd Abjon, who was the curate of Drumkeen. Now, the next visitor, actually visiting the LeFanu seemed to be a high-risk activity. The next visitor to come a cropper was Maria Knowles, who was a daughter of the Reverend LeFanu's cousin, James Sheridan Knowles, and she died in 1844. and he explicitly says that she's in the same enclosure as Jane Ferguson and his daughter, so we know they're all together. Then we have the Reverend himself, very prosaic entry in the record, in 1845, and he was 61 years old. And that's what he looked like as a young man. Nice to get a picture. And again, the Nina Guardian, the notice of his death, said he was a zealous minister of the gospel, a benefactor of the poor, an ornament of society, and a dispenser of charity. He could not be surpassed. But usually they have reams about a clergyman, so it was quite short, disappointingly short. And lastly, his wife, again, very short and unadorned entry in the parish record of the Reverend LeFanu's wife, Emma Lucretia. And she succeeded him by quite a bit. She died in 1861 and she was 78 years old. And that's what she looked like as a young girl and as an older lady. And again, her death was in the Freeman's Journal, and she died in her son William's house in Dublin, and her body brought back to Abington. And that's it, pretty much. That's everybody that's in the plot in Abington, but we know they're all together. So thanks to the Reverend LeFanu's record keeping, we know where they are and who they are. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for your attention.